In 1888, a philosopher sat alone in a rented room, coughing blood, losing his vision, abandoned by almost everyone who once called him friend. He had 11 months left before madness would claim him forever. And in those 11 months, Friedrich Nietzsche wrote more dangerously, more furiously, more prophetically than he ever had before. 5 books in 1 year. 5 explosions of thought that the world was not ready to receive. But here is what they never teach you in philosophy class. Hidden inside those pages, camouflaged beneath dense German prose and academic terminology, was a complete psychological architecture for a specific type of man. A man who does not compete because he has transcended competition. A man who does not seek validation because he has become his own validation. A man who does not follow the rules because he is busy writing his own. Nietzsche was not theorizing. He was confessing. He was describing himself, and in doing so, he accidentally created the most accurate psychological profile of what we now call the Sigma male, over a century before the term was ever invented. But before you dismiss this as coincidence, ask yourself something. Why do certain ideas survive across centuries while others die in decades? Why does a half-blind, syphilitic philosopher writing in isolation still speak to millions of men today? The answer is uncomfortable. The answer is that Nietzsche was not writing about his time. He was writing about yours. He saw the future with terrifying clarity. He saw a world drowning in mediocrity, a world where the exceptional would be punished for their excellence, a world where standing alone would become the most radical act of rebellion. And he left instructions, precise, brutal, unforgiving instructions for how to survive it. Let me tell you about the moment Nietzsche cracked the code. It happened years before 1888, but it crystallized in that final productive year. He realized that human beings fall into 2 categories, and the division has nothing to do with intelligence, wealth, or talent. The division is psychological. On one side, you have the herd, the masses, the people who derive their identity from the group, who measure their worth by how well they conform, who feel physical discomfort when they stand apart from consensus. On the other side, you have the sovereign individual, the one who walks through the crowd, but is never of the crowd, the one whose internal world is so rich, so complete, so self-sustaining that external belonging becomes optional. Nietzsche called this the pathos of distance. Not arrogance, not superiority complex, but a fundamental recognition that you operate on a different frequency. Have you felt this? That strange sensation of watching people scramble for things you do not want, fight battles you find meaningless, celebrate victories that feel hollow to you? That is not alienation. That is recognition. That is the first symptom of waking up. Now here is where Nietzsche gets dangerous. He did not just describe this type of man, he provided the operating manual. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he introduced the concept of the 3 metamorphoses. The spirit must first become a camel, bearing the weight of duty, tradition, and expectation. Then the camel must become a lion, roaring against everything it was taught, destroying the tablets of old values, saying no to the 1,000-year-old dragon called "Thou shalt." And finally, the lion must become a child, creating new values from innocence and play, building a world on its own terms. This is not poetry. This is a roadmap. And most men never make it past the camel stage. They carry weights they never questioned. They obey rules they never examined. They live lives scripted by dead people. The Sigma, the sovereign individual, is the one who completes all 3 transformations. He carries the weight until he understands it. He destroys the weight until he is free of it. And then he creates something new, something entirely his own. But here's the part that separates philosophy from psychology. Nietzsche understood that this transformation requires a specific relationship with pain. He wrote that what does not kill you makes you stronger, and the world turned it into a bumper sticker, a cliché, an empty platitude. But Nietzsche meant something precise. He meant that suffering is not an obstacle to greatness. It is the raw material. Every rejection you have faced, every failure that kept you awake at night, every moment when you felt invisible in a world obsessed with noise, these are not wounds. They are initiations. The Sigma does not run from pain. He metabolizes it. He uses betrayal to sharpen his discernment. He uses loneliness to deepen his independence. He uses failure to fuel his hunger. Ask yourself honestly, when life breaks you, do you collapse into victimhood? Or do you quietly rebuild yourself stronger than before? Your answer determines which side of Nietzsche's divide you stand on. In 1888, Nietzsche wrote something that still haunts me. He said, "The man who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." Read that again, slowly. He was describing the internal complexity of the outsider, the man who sees his own flaws with brutal clarity, who judges himself more harshly than any critic ever could, and yet who finds in that very harshness a strange form of dignity. This is not self-hatred. This is self-awareness so intense that it becomes a form of power. The Sigma is his own toughest opponent. He does not need enemies because he is already at war with the weaker versions of himself. Every morning is a battle. Every choice is a test. Every moment of comfort is a potential trap. Does this sound exhausting? It is. But it is also the only path to genuine self-respect. The respect that comes from knowing you have earned your own approval. Now let me address the shadow that Nietzsche explored with terrifying honesty. The danger of this path. He knew that walking alone could curdle into bitterness. He knew that strength could become cruelty. He knew that the man who transcends the herd could become a monster if he loses his internal compass. This is why he emphasized creation over destruction. The lion phase is necessary, but it is not the destination. The Sigma, who only destroys, who only rejects, who only stands against, is incomplete. The full transformation requires building something. A philosophy, a legacy, a version of yourself so refined, so intentional, that it becomes a work of art. Nietzsche called this amor fati, the love of fate. Not passive acceptance, not resignation, but an aggressive embrace of everything that happens, using every circumstance as material for self-creation. Can you look at your worst moments and say, yes, I needed that? Can you look at your enemies and say thank you for sharpening me? This is the final test. There is a reason Nietzsche called his philosophy dynamite. It explodes comfortable illusions. It forces you to confront questions you have been avoiding your entire life. Questions like, what would remain of you if you stripped away every opinion you borrowed, every goal you inherited, every identity you perform for approval? What would remain? Most people cannot answer because there is nothing left. They are composites of influences, puppets of trends, echoes of louder voices. The Sigma is the one who can answer. He is the one who has done the excavation work, who has gone into the dark caverns of his own psychology and discovered something solid, something unkillable, something that belongs only to him. Nietzsche called this becoming who you are, not becoming who others want you to be, not becoming a better version of someone else's template, but uncovering the strange, specific, irreplaceable thing you were before the world started editing you. In his final sane moments, Nietzsche wrote letters signing himself as Dionysus, the god of chaos and ecstasy. Some called it madness, but maybe it was recognition. Maybe he had become something beyond the usual categories. Maybe he had completed his own transformation and found no human vocabulary left to describe it. And here you are, over a century later, watching this video at this exact moment. Coincidence? I do not believe in coincidences. I believe you are here because something in you recognizes something in these words. Something in you has always known that the conventional paths lead nowhere worth going. Something in you has been waiting for permission to stop pretending. Here is your permission. Stop waiting for the world to validate what you already know. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop shrinking yourself to fit rooms that were never built for someone your size. Nietzsche wrote the Playbook. He paid for it with his sanity. The least you can do is read it. The least you can do is live it. He once wrote, "The lonely one offers his hand too quickly to whomever he encounters." Let that sink in. Even in loneliness, there is a danger of desperation, of selling yourself short for any connection. The true sovereign waits. The true sovereign knows that the right connections will come, but only when he stops needing them. Only when his solitude becomes a kingdom rather than a prison. That is the final secret. Make your isolation so productive, so generative, so powerful, that it stops being loneliness and starts being empire. One day, Nietzsche promised, a new type of man would emerge. A man beyond good and evil, beyond herd morality, beyond the petty games of social climbing and approval seeking. He called this man the Übermensch, the overman, the one who overcomes. You are either becoming that man, or you are becoming the furniture of someone else's life. There is no middle ground. There is no safe option. Choose. He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. That is the nature of living creatures. If this made you think deeply, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe for more.